Hello everybody and welcome back to the next section of our ethical hacking course. Now, in the previous section we covered the web penetration testing attacks and some of the basic and some of the more advanced attacks, but in this section we will cover some of the attacks used to gather the access to the wireless access point network. Now, we will cover two types of the attacks for this part, which is the brute force dictionary attack on the wireless access point and the evil twin attack. We will use the VPA and VPA2 type of wireless access points. VPA3 is the newest one, but it is still not widely used. It came out last year, I believe, in June 2018, and it is still not used in regular places. The VPA3 basically will be the most secured one, and it will prevent some of the attacks that we were able to perform on the VPA2 and the VPA type of wireless access points. So what I have right here is a little bit bad drawing of a dictionary based attack, or not dictionary based, basically the type of attack where we actually sniff the four-way handshake of a wireless access point. Now, the four-way handshake is basically a process that the client performs in order to connect to the wireless access point. It is called a four-way handshake because it is consisted from four parts. Now, in order for us to gather the four-way handshake, we would need to basically the entire process can be summed up in one sentence. So basically we need to disconnect the client from the wireless access point and sniff the four-way handshake as soon as he tries to connect back. That would be the entire process that we would be doing. So the process in detail would be that we need to send something called the deauthentication frames. Now, the deauthentication frame is a frame sent from a station wishing to terminate connection from another station. So basically the authentication frame is something that client sends to the wireless access point when he wants to disconnect from it. The thing is that we can spoof the MAC address of all of the clients that are connected to the wireless access point and make them connected instead of us. So basically, if you wanted to on any wireless access point, you can send the authentication frames and disconnect all of the other clients from the wireless access point without you even having the access to it. Now, we will do that in detail and in practical in the next lectures, but for now on, you should just know that we will basically spoof the MAC address and send the authentication frames in order to disconnect a client from a wireless access point. The thing is, we can do that for as long as we want. If we wanted to, we could deauthenticate them for 24 hours, but most likely we will only be wanting to do that for a few seconds. So as soon as we stop the authentication attack, the client will automatically connect back to the wireless access point. And when he does that, when the client automatically connects back, we basically gather something called a four-way handshake, which is the handshake where the client will send the password to the wireless access point. Now, the problem is that the password that we will gather from the four-way handshake will be encrypted, and that's where comes the dictionary based attack, which is basically after this we only want to brute force the hash that we received with a dictionary. But we will talk about that in detail later on. We would basically just need to find out the word that is corresponded to that hash that we received from the four-way handshake. But that process doesn't really have anything to do with the wireless hacking. The wireless hacking is basically only consisted from the deauthenticating the client and then gathering the four-way handshake. Basically, that is the first attack that we will do. Now, the second attack that we will do is basically we will recreate the same access point that we want to hack. That's called the evil twin access point. That is also one of the main purposes why we use the authentication. Basically, we want to force clients to connect to our evil twin access point, which then can be used to capture network packets transferred between the client and our access point. Now, how we do that? Well, we basically try to make the identical access point as the one that we are attacking, and then once we do that, we basically send the authentication packets to the clients connected to the wireless access point, and then we hope that they will connect back to our access point instead of the real and legit access point that they were connected to before. Now, in order for us to perform both of these attacks, you will need two things. The first one is the monitor mode enabled on your wireless network card. Now, if you don't have the monitor mode option on your network card, you will basically need to buy a cheap network card that has the monitor mode enabled on it. Basically anywhere you like, you can go to your local store and try to find it. Just ask if this card has the monitor mode option on it. That is also the reason why I will be recording all of these attacks on my laptop instead of the Kali Linux machine, or basically only the first part of the attack I will record on the laptop, and then after that we will go onto our Kali Linux machine, since I have monitor mode enabled on my laptop and I don't have a wireless card for my Kali Linux machine. And the second thing that you might need is the antenna for stronger signal in Evil Twin attack. Now, that is not a must, you do not need it if you don't want it, but it can make your attack perform better, since if you have a stronger signal, after you deauthenticate these two clients, they will most likely connect back to you instead of the real access point. But you do not need it. We can perform the Evil Twin attack even without the antenna for stronger signal. But the first thing that I said you will need, you cannot perform any of these attacks without the monitor mode on your network card. So make sure you get that to work before you continue with this section. That would basically be some of the theory behind all of these attacks. We will of course cover them in greater detail and in practical in the next lectures. Now, some of you might ask, why aren't we also attacking VPA3? Well, as I said, basically VPA3 is newer version and it is not widely used yet in the world, and there is no point to attack something that basically doesn't have a vulnerability yet and basically isn't used yet. Now, they did discover the vulnerability, I believe, last year when it came out, which is also a vulnerability for the VPA2. Basically, I believe some Hashcat developer found a way to crack the network without involving the four-way handshake. So basically, with this attack, I believe the attacker sends a single EPOL frame to the access point. They then get back the pairwise master key and use Hashcat to generate the pre-shared key. Now, Hashcat is a program that we will use in order to crack the hash of the password that we received from the four-way handshake. I will show you that program later on and how to use it. And with a reasonably GPU cracking infrastructure, you could crack many systems in just a few days, or even less. Some of the systems you could basically crack in just a few seconds. Now, the dictionary-based attack, for some of you that are wondering, is not possible on the VPA3, which is the new wireless access point security measures. Basically, the VPA2 for handshake was suitable to offline dictionary-based attacks, which we will cover, especially when short passwords under 16 characters were employed, but VPA3's handshake protocol forces real-time attacks, essentially eliminating the dictionary attack techniques, which basically means in the VPA2 attack, which we will cover, basically once you gather the four-way handshake, you do not even need to be near the wireless access point. You can just go on the other side of the world and still perform the dictionary brute force, since you have the four-way handshake captured in a packet that you have saved on your Kali Linux machine, for example. And then later on you do not need to be anywhere near the wireless access point in order to try to brute force that hash. But that type of the attack we won't be able to do on the VPA3, and also the VPA3 uses the simultaneous authentication of equals, or SAE, to replace the VPA2's pre-shared key, which is PSKey exchange protocol. which is also the four-way handshake. The SAE is a more secure protocol for handling the initial key exchange, and SAE, also known as the Dragonfly key exchange, uses forward secrecy and is resistant to offline decryption attacks. So that's about it for the theoretical part. We will of course cover it in greater detail later on, but for now on, this is just some of the basics that you should know in order to more easily understand the attacks that we will perform. And also you need to gather, as I said, the network card with monitor mode option on it, and then you will be set to go. So that's about it for the theory part. In the next lecture I will start with putting our network card in monitor mode and starting our dictionary based attack. So I hope I see you in the next lecture, and take care. Bye.